welcome back. Still with our focus, of course, on Gauteng's third biggest metro, Ekurhuleni. Let's speak to some of the players. We're joined by the ANC's Deputy Regional Chair in Ekurhuleni, Jongizizwe Dlabath, also from the mayoral candidate for the Democratic Alliance, Refiloe Nt'sekhe, and then the Ekurhuleni mayoral candidate for the African Independence Congress, Sivuyile Ngodwana. Good evening to you all. Thanks very much indeed for coming. Well, let's start with the governing party in Ekurhuleni, that is the ANC. I say the governing party, I'm not sure who I should look at if you're in a coalition, but I'll start with the ANC. Jongizizwe, good evening to you. There are major problems in Ekurhuleni, we know this. There are problems around inequality, which are very difficult to overcome. There are also some problems around governance. You know that your party has been sharply criticized for issues around corruption. There is, I believe your leader put it very well, a palpable sense of anger against the ANC at the moment. Why should people vote for you in Ekurhuleni?
Well, if you look at what we committed in 2016, we said we want to work together with our communities to improve the living conditions. Just today, we had a council meeting where we tabled the end of the term report. And it was quite clear that we have made significant improvement. I can cite, for instance, around human settlement, we have delivered almost 42,000 houses, 26,000 stands, unprecedented. On the issue of electricity, 40 of the informal settlements to date are enjoying electricity. In fact, it has translated to almost 97,000 houses that are now connected to electricity. As part of ensuring that there is sustainability of water supply in the city of Ekurhuleni, we are constructing 29,000 reservoirs, unprecedented, never done before. With regards to roads and stormwater, we have built or constructed about 230 kilometers of roads. Now, specifically on the issue of corruption, we can put it without a doubt that the city of Ekurhuleni has not been found wanting genuinely on maladministration and corruption. In fact, this leadership has made it clear from the onset that there is a zero tolerance to corruption. Two things that can confirm this. One is that we have received our third clean audit, which you may know that it speaks to presentation of financial statements, no irregular or unauthorized expenditure. And this has been realized since the beginning of our term in 2016 till today. So you can't qualify that there is corruption in the city of Ekurhuleni when there is a clean audit, and for the past 4 financial years, there was never wasteful, fruitless.
You're using your opportunity very well. I'm going to give you 10 seconds to wrap up because I have questions for you.
Well, lastly, I was just articulating on the achievements that we've done, because we are a governing party, so we can give account as opposed to giving aspirations of what we want to do.
Nice. So you say all of that, you talk about electricity, but as a council you just simply failed to implement load shedding. I mean, Eskom basically had to take it over. Why did you do that? Did you ignore them? Why did Ekurhuleni ignore the rest of the country?
In fact, we did not fail. We had the capacity to ensure that we provide electricity. Unfortunately, Eskom is constrained. And it was an imposition into the city of Ekurhuleni that you must implement load reduction. In fact, it was at the point where Eskom said to us, implement it. We were never implementing it in the city of Ekurhuleni.
Eskom said the pleas have yielded very little success, with the municipality continuously failing to implement the required load shedding in its areas of supply. That clearly points to a problem.
Well, it's not true. Well, it's not true.
So Eskom lied.
Prior to Eskom instructing us to implement load shedding purely because they are constrained, we did not have major problems with electricity supply in Ekurhuleni, except, of course, we acknowledge during winter that we did experience a couple of interruptions on the basis of illegal connections overloading into our network capacity.
Refiloe Nt'sekhe, excuse me. You're obviously running to be the mayoral candidate for the Democratic Alliance in Ekurhuleni. We've seen the DA, it seems, having a little bit of a rough time in this campaign. There have been issues particularly around race. There's the Phoenix posters. The context around our politics has changed dramatically since the last local elections 5 years ago. Do you believe you're going to do better in Ekurhuleni than you did then?
I think the DA is going to take Ekurhuleni with a 50+1 majority.
Stephen Kachalia said the same thing. Why do you believe you're right?
You know, Stephen, as I speak to you now, I've come out of parts of Ekurhuleni where literally people have been paying for electricity but have not had electricity for the past 5 months, where you find that literally elderly people who have electrical appliances have now been reduced to using a primer stove. You can imagine what that does on their lungs. And that's not an Eskom issue. It's failure of the city to actually provide substations. When you go through the length and breadth, as I've been traveling since the 23rd of August when I was asked to be the mayoral candidate, Springs, the mining belt, have not had electricity, sometimes in the tune of 9 days. Wadeville, which have some of our distilleries, have not had electricity for 15 days. And they say that as much as we have Eskom and it's a national entity, the failure to maintain, build new infrastructure, and fix infrastructure is what's contributing to these. I've spoken to engineers of Ekurhuleni. I've spoken to independent engineers who live in Ekurhuleni, don't necessarily work for the municipality, where they are actually told that some of the substations, they are told to only buy a fuse when there's a power outage. So it's not surprising that Eskom will actually take away the management of the load shedding away from Ekurhuleni and do it itself because of the failure to manage infrastructure particularly. And also in the municipality, electricity outage is a major issue. When you look at nurses' recommendation, they asked Ekurhuleni to have 1,500 staff members in the department. Funded of those positions is 1,100. Currently, only 879. I found over 1,000 registered electrical engineers residing in Ekurhuleni.
Sivuyile Ngodwana, you're from the African Independence Congress, and of course you, let me put it like this, kept the ANC in power, I think, let me put it like that. Do you believe now it was the right thing to do?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I wouldn't say it's not a good thing to do, because when we come into the agreement with ANC, our agreement was one. We were both wanted to push service delivery to the residents of Ekurhuleni, of which as AIC, we were committed to do that. That is why up until today, it was our council meeting, we're still pushing with the same spirit to make sure that the residents of Ekurhuleni did receive the service delivery. It was an agreement that was principled and genuine, because it was only concentrated to give service delivery the people of Ekurhuleni what they want.
That wasn't what you said at the time. In 2016, your party said that you're going to this coalition to keep the ANC in power in Ekurhuleni, while demanding that the provincial boundary around the town of Matatiele, which is currently in the Eastern Cape, be moved so that your town, I mean AIC, Matatiele is your town, would be back in KwaZulu-Natal. That hasn't happened, so the ANC got what it wanted, you haven't got what you wanted, so haven't you actually failed your voters?
Okay. I will answer that by saying that when we do those agreements, remember, there were two agreements that were signed. The regional, that is based in Ekurhuleni, that were signed with the regional executive of Ekurhuleni. And there was the national that was looking at the issue of Matatiele, of which I believe that issue is not yet out of the window. The senior leadership is still dealing with it. They are going to fight it forward. They are not going to withdraw it.
About 3 years ago, you had a meeting with Jeff Radebe, who was in charge of policy for the ANC at the time, and you made threats then, and then you didn't back them up. So basically, I mean, what happened? Did the ANC buy you up?
No. Yes, we did. Now, you will know that even with those meetings, they were keep on changing. Because if you remember, we're dealing with him, then they changed him, so it was a new person then. And also it was being discussed at a national level. It was not in our competence as the region.
It really sounds like the ANC got what they wanted. They got to control Ekurhuleni and you got nothing.
No, I cannot say that, because we as the resident and the region of Ekurhuleni, we did make sure that our voters in Ekurhuleni get what they wanted. Although we didn't achieve that one of Matatiele, of which we are still going to pursue it. But now I think our focus, my focus as the regional president, was to concentrate mainly with the issue of the service delivery, where I'm a council.
No, I do take your point. Refiloe Nt'sekhe, I mean, You've said as the DA, and your leader was very explicit about this over the weekend, that you won't be in a coalition with the EFF. And I hear you when you say that, you know, you're going to govern in Ekurhuleni, but everyone says they're going to govern everywhere at the moment. That's just the nature of politics. The EFF are likely to do quite well in this election in Ekurhuleni. I think 11% in 2016. We understand strong base in Tembisa, people moving in from Limpopo. If you then won't do a deal with the EFF, the chances are that there's no chance that you'll be able to form a government in Ekurhuleni.
Stephen, there's no point going to a coalition when you have a misalignment of values. And the reality we've learned from all our coalition relationships from the past, from 2016 and previously, to say, rather go into coalitions with political parties where you have similar or some form of shared values. And, you know, I think it's a bit premature to also start discussing coalition discussions now when we haven't seen the outcome of an election. We only sit around the table and say, what is the coalition going to look like after we've seen the results of an election? I've been on the ground for a good 6 weeks, and let me tell you, where the president got kicked out in Katlehong, I was there the next day, and the community welcomed them. That was unprecedented for the Democratic Alliance. I have seen fruitless and wasteful expenditure, I don't want to call it corruption, where you find a 70 million power station that was supposed to be built, completed in 2019, not completed, open field. Where's that 70 million? Poor financial controls in Ekurhuleni. We need to come in as the Democratic Alliance with a track record of governing well, especially when you look at municipalities or like Midval. When we say clean audit, we mean lived experiences of residents must be translated in that clean audit. Not just you say clean audit, but when I go on the ground, like yesterday, a 2 billion rand project, which was supposed to be developed over a 7-year period for 22,000 houses, not one house is standing. This is the Leopold project. So I can give you examples, the length and breadth of Ekurhuleni, where I have found fruitless, wasteful expenditure. Katlehong last week, storage on the ground. I had storage bubbling backwards in a resident's house because the main line has not been fixed for 4 years in Ekurhuleni. And 4,000 vacancies in the municipality that are funded. 70% of our contractors are not even Ekurhuleni residents. The companies that get tenders in Ekurhuleni do not come from Ekurhuleni.
Okay. We're going to continue this conversation. I will continue practicing being the Speaker of the Ekurhuleni Council when we come back. Welcome back. Our special conversation tonight on the pulse around the metro of Ekurhuleni in Gauteng. Joining us this evening, Jongizizwe Dlabath, the Deputy Regional Chair of the ANC in Ekurhuleni. From the Democratic Alliance, their mayoral candidates in that council, Refiloe Nt'sekhe, and Sivuyile Ngodwana is the Ekurhuleni mayoral candidate for the African Independence Congress. You remember, of course, the AIC is one of those parties that, how do I put this, has kept the ANC in power. Is that the wrong way to put it? Jongizizwe, you'll have heard the critique a few moments ago from the Democratic Alliance, from Refiloe, about the way that you've governed. Let me add to it. We've had various stories in the Amabungani Center for Investigative Journalism talking about waste pickers, for example, who were taken advantage of. The claims against you, essentially, to summarize, are that you have not been spending money properly, that there are problems with the electricity, that there are people who live in Ekurhuleni who could fix those problems, and that they are paid for positions which are still vacant. How do you respond to that?
Well, I will always refer to Auditor General South Africa as an independent supreme audit institution. We have never been found wanting for the past 4 financial years. Now, I want to qualify this. I have been correcting Sis Refiloe on numerous occasions. We have not experienced any cent on fruitless and wasteful expenditure.
Not 1 cent?
Not on 1 cent. For the past 4 financial years, I refer you to Auditor General South Africa's report. Since Refiloe, of course, has been absent in the city, we understand that she's in Parliament.
Gentle, gentle.
Secondly,
yes.
Secondly is that you don't need to bloat the municipal budget insofar as the workforce is concerned. Our view is that with the capacity that we have in the electricity department, we need to ensure that there is optimal utilization of the staff at this current point in time. We have acceded to the challenges of maintenance, and that is why if you look at our broader budget investment, there's around 27 billion that we have channeled towards infrastructure investment. And part of what we're going to focus on moving forward in the city of Ekurhuleni is precisely around the issue of network enhancement. Given the fact that, Steve, there's a lot of urbanization in Gauteng, and Ekurhuleni as a city is not immune simply because we are an industrial hub and people are looking towards work opportunities. The other point I wanted to clarify as a correction is that we are using a prepaid system in the city of Ekurhuleni. So there is no way that you can buy electricity and don't use it unless you are using a conventional system. I come from KwaThema in Springs. And when there were electricity challenges around the industrial area in Springs, myself and Councillor Smilan were working very close with the business community and some of the leaders of the institution. I speak about Pilkington, I speak about Kellogg's. And that issue was resolved simply because we have invested in new electrical infrastructure. There is stability in that regard. We are working on Germiston as well as Albertine. The issue of corruption and what Mapungane says, there will always be allegation of corruption. We have institutions. For instance, we are being subjected to SIU investigation, which we have welcomed around the issues of tax. And I think all of us must allow a due process to take place. And I'm sure at the point where there is a negative report around the procurement, the leadership of the institution will have to act purely because our attitude has been that of a zero tolerance towards corruption. And I must remind you in this debate that we are following on the line of President Cyril Ramaphosa. Immediately when he came from the 54th National Conference, if you remember, the ANC had 9 focus areas, and one of which was to deal with the issues of corruption. And I still want to re-emphasize, Steve, that we have not been found wanting by Auditor General on corruption matters.
So, I mean, a key figure in Ekurhuleni is the mayor, right? Mzondile Messina. And I mean, he's been a strong supporter of people implicated in corruption. The phrase you didn't use but possibly meant a moment ago is innocent till proven guilty, right? Is Mzondile Messina going to be your mayor next time round?
Well,
you're not going to answer, are you?
The ANC has its own processes. The mayoral candidates of the ANC are going to be subjected into an interview very soon, assessment process, and the ANC at the right time, it will pronounce itself. And of course, the ANC will look at the record. What is it that the current executive mayor has delivered? And we are hoping that on the basis of a solid foundation and what we have tabled to date, we think that the ANC can give due consideration for Comrade Mzondile Messina to continue to preside over a stable institution.
Refiloe, you're the mayoral candidate. 2016 in Ekurhuleni, your mayoral candidate was Caleb Kachalia, and he lost. And when he lost, he left the council and he went to Parliament. Are you going to do the same thing if you lose?
I'm not going to have that conversation yet because I believe we're going to win. But what I want to say in response to my colleague...
Sorry, hold on. You're either committed to the people of Ekurhuleni.
I am, because even as a member, I'm not in Parliament, I'm in the provincial legislature. Every night I sleep in my house in Kempton Park. So when he says I'm in Parliament, it's actually a distortion of the truth. I live in Ekurhuleni. The lift failure, service delivery failures of Ekurhuleni residents I experience on a daily basis. I work in Tembisa as my constituency. I'm in that township day and night. When we had the unrest, I was literally with the police pulling corpses out of ShopRite at Tembisa Plaza. I was busy with cleaning up campaigns. So I live in Ekurhuleni. Whether I'm in the provincial legislature or whether I serve in council, I am still a resident of Ekurhuleni and I still serve the community of Ekurhuleni. What I've made a vow to my party is I will serve as a mayoral candidate. I will help to lead Ekurhuleni because I was the best candidate after a rigorous process that the DA has to elect mayoral candidates. So when we win, I will make sure that I lead that caucus.
The phrase, when we win in politics, where would we be without it? Sivuyile is the AIC, right? I mean, I don't know if you believe you're going to be the mayor, and I'm also going to say when we win. But if the ANC comes close to winning, are you going to go into a coalition with them again?
I think that one, I cannot say specific yes, because as the party, we'll have to sit and discuss and also to look at who can work with. Remember, you also look at the party that will share the same ideas. We cannot say now we'll work with ANC, we are not going to work with ANC. because it's the party that will decide.
I see. There's obviously a lot going on in Ekurhuleni. It's one of these crucial places that we see in Gauteng at the moment. There are huge issues around inequality. Do you believe, and I'm going to ask each of you this, do you believe that you're actually being judged on your service delivery record, or do you believe that you're actually being judged on the sort of bigger national issues that are at play? I'll start with you, Jongizizwe. I mean, in a way, the ANC's been on what you could call an apology tour, you know, apologizing for the way it's governed and asking for a second term or for another term in office in most councils. Do you really think that the apology tour of the ANC is working?
Yeah, well, when you have consciously realized that you have committed some fundamental mistakes in the ordinary course of serving your people, you must acknowledge and demonstrate a remorse by tabling a genuine apology. And that is why President Ramaphosa, on behalf of the African National Congress, has done, to genuinely apologize to our communities. But subsequent to that, President Ramaphosa is quite firm to say that we must do better as the African National Congress, because we are the only hope, and with the vast experience that we have, with the unification and the renewal process of the African National Congress, you are seeing a much more united African National Congress that is properly led by President Ramaphosa. There's coherence, there's hegemony, and there's no confusion in terms of communication.
And until after the election, I'm sorry, Jongizizwe, I'm going to have to ask you to stop there. We're going to run out of time. Refiloe, is the ANC, is the Democratic Alliance being judged on the slogan, "We get things done," or on other things?
I think the reality is we are being judged on getting things done. If you look at the best-run municipalities in South Africa, whether it's by the IQ Institute or by the Auditor General or any other institution, the best-run municipalities actually belong to the Democratic Alliance. Case in point, Midvaal, which we have been told is the best-run municipality in Gauteng. So I'm not even going to go nationwide, but zoom in here in Gauteng. And obviously the other two municipalities, Johannesburg and Tshwane, we're still new. We were under administration with ANC. We've now taken it over from November last year. So there's been disruption in our service delivery. So I think if we get uninterrupted DA governance, people see it a proper, good service delivery from DA-led Ekurhuleni. And that's what the people of Ekurhuleni deserve, a government that can fix the finances and deliver services.
I do need to give Sivuyile Ngodwana a quick moment. Do you believe you're being judged on your ability to move a provincial boundary, which you failed to do so far? Or do you think you're being judged on other issues?
No, I think what we can be judged on what we have done to the residents of Ekurhuleni, because that's where we've governed, and we did make sure that what we committed, we did honor it, to serve the residents of Ekurhuleni.
Well, we are going to have to end it there. My time as the apparent speaker in waiting in Ekurhuleni has come to an end. No party, unfortunately, has nominated me, which means that you as the viewer are probably stuck with me here for a little longer. To my guests, thanks very much indeed. Jongizizwe Dlabath is the Deputy Regional Chair of the ANC in Ekurhuleni. Refiloe Nt'sekhe is the mayoral candidate for the Democratic Alliance in Ekurhuleni. Sivuyile Ngodwana is the Ekurhuleni mayoral candidate for the AIC. I don't need to tell you the parties. You can just look at the team.